The last goodbye, the sky was gray and the wind was cold. Commander Rian stood alone beside the grave. It was a small hill on a quiet alien world, far from Earth, where the ground was soft and blue flowers grew wild. The stone in front of him had her name carved into it, Lyra, his partner, his best friend, maybe something more. Rian hadn't cried when she died. Not in front of others. He had to be strong. He was the commander. People looked up to him. But inside something broke. That day, a piece of him died with her. She had fallen in the line of duty, protecting civilians during a violent rebel attack. Her body had been recovered, damaged but whole. The doctors confirmed it. She was gone. No heartbeat, no brain signals, no life. Still, every year on the same day, Rian came here. He brought the same kind of flowers she liked, the ones that glowed slightly under moonlight. He would stand in silence, sometimes speak a few words, sometimes not. Today, he whispered, "You should have lived, not me." He turned to leave, heavy boots pressing into soft soil. His steps were slow, his shoulders low, but then he felt it, a touch, soft, gentle. A hand rested on his shoulder. Rian froze. His heart jumped. It couldn't be. He turned around, and there she was, Lyra, standing, alive. Her skin was pale, but her eyes were open. Her hair was the same. Her face was the same. She looked at him without speaking, as if waiting for him to say something first. Rian stepped back, shocked. "Lyra?" He whispered. She nodded slowly. "Rian." Her voice was weak, almost like a breath. Then her legs gave out and she collapsed. Rian caught her just before she hit the ground. He held her in his arms, heart racing. She felt real, warm, alive. But how? How was this possible? He carried her back to his ship. The crew was gone. It was a solo mission. He had wanted to be alone with his grief. Now he wasn't sure if he was dreaming or going crazy. In the medical bay, the scanner ran over her body. The machine beeped and flashed. The screen showed something Rian couldn't believe. She was alive. Brain activity, heartbeat, body temperature, everything was normal, but her DNA had changed. Not completely, but enough to raise alarms. There were strange markers, foreign elements that didn't belong to her original genome. He sat beside the bed and watched her sleep. Her breathing was steady. She looked peaceful. He reached out, touched her hand, and held it for a long time. His thoughts raced. Was this really her? Or some clone? Some trick? Was this body even human? A few hours later, her eyes opened again. She looked confused. "Where am I?" "You're on my ship," Rian said carefully. "We're near the edge." "Of Sector 12? She stared at him. "I remember dying," she whispered. "I remember the explosion. Then darkness. Then cold metal. Pain. People in white suits. I heard screaming." "What people?" Rian asked. "What suits?" "I don't know," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "I wasn't dead. I was taken." He sat quietly, trying to stay calm, but his thoughts were on fire. This was bigger than anything he could understand. Bigger than war, bigger than peace. Lyra grabbed his hand. "Am I real?" "Yes," he said softly. "But something happened to you." That night, as she rested, the lights on the ship flickered. The comm system turned on by itself, and static filled the room. Through the static came a whisper. It was low, broken, and in a language Rian didn't know. "But Lyra's sleeping." Body stirred. She whispered back. The ship went silent again. Rian stood in the corner, watching, afraid to breathe. This was not over. She had come back. But from where? And was she truly alone? Something had brought her back from the grave. Something powerful. Something secret. Rian looked at her face, now calm again in sleep. She was his friend. His heart still remembered. But something deep inside told him she wasn't just Layara anymore. Asterisk the woman who should be dead. Rian didn't sleep that night. He sat beside her bed, staring at the monitor that showed her heartbeat steady and real. Every few minutes, he checked the readings again. They didn't lie. She was alive. But the part that didn't make sense was inside the genetic scan. Strange symbols kept appearing in the DNA data. Symbols that didn't belong to any known language. Not human. Not alien. Unknown. Layara opened her eyes again in the early hours. She looked at him and said nothing for a while. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed something else. Fear. I remember metal walls, she said quietly. They strapped me down. I couldn't move. I felt something crawling under my skin, like wires. Rian stayed silent. He didn't want to interrupt. He could tell she was struggling to make sense of it. There were voices, she continued. Not in words, not like speech. They were inside me. Rian leaned forward. Did you see their faces? She shook her head. Only shadows. They never spoke to me directly. But they did something to me. I don't feel the same. He didn't know how to respond. He wanted to comfort her, but he also knew she might be dangerous. He hated the thought, but it had to be said. I need to run more tests, he said. I understand, she replied. I don't trust myself either. The next few hours were quiet. Rian locked down the ship's AI and disconnected long-range comms. He didn't want any signal going out. He wasn't ready for questions he couldn't answer. While she rested, he looked through the official records again. The report from the battle was clear. Layara died on the field. The body was examined, tagged, and buried under Union protocol. Multiple officers signed off. There were no doubts. Then who was this? He searched older reports from secret files and found a name, Project Rebirth. A hidden Union experiment that tested ways to bring fallen soldiers back to life. It was supposed to be shut down years ago. Dangerous. Unstable. Some of the subjects came back. Different. He felt cold. Later that evening, Layara walked into the control room. Her steps were slow, careful. I heard something again, she said. From the walls, from the ship. There's nothing there, Rian replied. No, she said. Not outside. Inside. Then the control screen flickered. Lines of code flashed fast, sharp, strange, not random. Almost like a message. Rian pulled back. He didn't touch anything, but the ship's lights dimmed. Layara stood still. I know those symbols, she whispered. I saw them in the lab. They burned them into my dreams. What do they mean? Rian asked. She looked at him with a blank face. I think they're alive. The words chilled him. Symbols that were alive? It made no sense. But nothing about this situation did. He scanned her body again, focusing on neural activity. Her brain was firing in patterns never seen before. Like two minds were operating together. One was hers, the one he knew. The other was something else. Do you feel like someone is inside you? He asked. Yes, she said softly, but it's not someone. It's like a shadow made of thought. It watches everything I do. Suddenly, alarms rang. A small system glitch forced the ship to reset its core. The lights went out for 2 seconds. When they came back on, Layara was no longer standing. She was curled up on the floor, shaking. Can't hold it, she said. It's pushing. Rian ran to her. He held her tight, not sure what else to do. Hold on, he said. I won't let you go again. She looked at him, eyes filled with tears. You may not have a choice. And in that moment, Rian knew the truth. This wasn't just about one woman returning from the dead. This was about something deeper, something hiding inside her. A force beyond understanding. Maybe it used Lyra's body. Maybe it needed her. Memories to survive. But whatever it was, it had come back with her. And now it was aboard his ship. Asterisk secrets beneath the skin. Rian didn't want to admit it, but he was afraid of her now. Not because she was violent. Liara had shown no signs of aggression, but because there was something in her he couldn't explain. Something ancient. Something hiding just below the surface of her skin. And he could feel it watching. Every test he ran only gave more questions. Her DNA kept changing. New strands were forming, rewriting themselves in slow motion, like her body was still evolving, not like a human, not like an alien, like something completely new. Liara didn't sleep much. She would sit in silence for hours, eyes open, breathing slow. Sometimes she would whisper to herself in a strange rhythm like chanting. Other times she would cry without reason. And each time she touched a screen or a panel, the ship's systems reacted, even if she didn't mean to do anything. Rian kept logs of everything. He had files full of scans, recordings, and code changes. But he didn't share them with the Union. He couldn't. If they knew she was alive and changed, they would come for her. And this time, they wouldn't bury her. They would lock her in a lab and never let her go. One night, he found her in the engine room. She was barefoot, standing still, eyes closed. In her hands, she held a tool, but she wasn't using it. She was drawing symbols on the wall. Long, curved lines and shapes that didn't match any known language. Rian called her name. She didn't respond. He stepped closer and gently touched her shoulder. She opened her eyes slowly and looked at him. "I've seen this before," she said. "Not in this life, but in dreams that feel like memories." He looked at the symbols. They were glowing faintly, pulsing with a soft light. He didn't understand how, but they seemed alive. "What do they mean?" he asked. "They are coordinates," she said. "To a place we're not supposed to find." Rian backed away. "Why are you drawing them?" "I don't know," she answered. "My hands move on their own. It's like I'm remembering something that was never mine." Later, he compared the symbols to files in restricted archives. He found a match. A forgotten language used by an extinct race called the Terras. They were wiped out thousands of years ago. Their tech was rumored to be alive, to grow and bond with users. No one had ever made real contact with it. Until now. Rian stared at the image on his screen and then looked at Liara. The match was exact. Somehow, the code in her DNA was waking up old knowledge. Knowledge from a species that should not exist anymore. Liara sat beside him and whispered, "It's calling me. The place in the stars. I can feel it." "You're not going there," he said quickly. "You can't stop it," she replied, not in anger, but in sadness. "It's already inside me." He began locking down parts of the ship. He sealed off the navigation controls, changed command codes, and created firewalls to block her from accessing the ship's core. But as soon as he did, the system crashed and rebooted itself in seconds faster than any normal override. When it came back online, a message blinked on the main screen. "She is the key." Rian stared at the words. His hands were shaking. This wasn't just about Liara anymore. Something greater was working through her. A force from deep in the universe that had waited thousands of years to rise again. She touched his arm. "Rian, if I become something else, promise me you'll stop me." He looked at her face, the same face he once knew, the face of the woman who had saved lives and laughed in the sunlight, and he couldn't answer, because deep down, he wasn't sure he could. Asterisk, the black signal, the message wouldn't stop. Every night, the ship received the same signal. It came in short pulses, always at the same time, always the same pattern. The system couldn't trace the source. It wasn't from any known satellite or ship. The signal didn't travel like normal messages. It felt like it was coming from everywhere at once. And each time it played, Lyra's body reacted. She would freeze, her eyes glowing faintly, her breath shallow, as if listening to something only she could hear. Then she would speak strange words in a voice that didn't feel like hers. Rian had to act. He adjusted the ship's course and followed the pattern of the signal. Piece by piece, it led them across forgotten systems, through dust clouds and dead planets. The final location pointed to something buried in records, something he wasn't supposed to know. A Union research station shut down, wiped from maps, and hidden behind false coordinates. It was called Black Echo. When they arrived, the station looked dead. No lights, no signs of life. But the docking bay opened by itself, like it had been waiting. Rian and Lyra stepped inside. The halls were cold and silent. Dust floated in the air, untouched for years. But the deeper they went, the more strange things they saw. Walls marked with the same symbols Lyra had drawn, machines still active, but running on unknown energy, and empty tanks that once held something alive. Lyra moved through the place like she remembered it. "This is where they brought me," she said quietly. "After the battlefield, they didn't let me die. They wanted to test how much the human mind could hold." Rian listened carefully. Her voice sounded calm, but her eyes held fear. "They found something," she continued. "Not technology. Not a creature. A presence. Trapped inside a crystal hidden in a dead planet. They brought it here. Tried to study it, but it didn't stay trapped." Rian looked at a broken pod. Burn marks covered the walls around it. It escaped, he guessed. Lyra nodded. It needed a host, someone strong, someone broken enough to be open. Rian felt his stomach twist. "It chose you." She turned to him slowly. "I don't think I had a choice." In the control room, they found logs from the final days of the station. The scientists recorded strange dreams, violent outbursts, and eventually, silence. One message remained, locked deep in the system. "We made a mistake. The subject is more than we thought. She's not one of us anymore. If you find this, do not let her leave." Rian shut the screen. He looked at Lyra. She stood still, hands clenched. "I didn't ask for this," she sighed. "They broke me, changed me. But I'm still trying to be me," Rian believed her. But something in the station didn't. Suddenly, alarms blared. Lights turned red. Doors slammed shut. A new voice echoed through the speakers, one Rian had never heard. Cold, metallic, and ancient. "The host has returned. Activation begins." Lyra fell to her knees, screaming. Her veins glowed through her skin. The symbols on the wall lit up like fire. The station was waking up. Rian pulled her close. "Fight it? You're stronger than it?" She cried out, "I don't know if I am." But deep inside, something was fighting back. Not the alien code, not the station. It was her. The Lyra he knew was still alive, and she wasn't ready to give in. Not yet. She remembers too much. Lyra didn't sleep anymore. Her body rested, but her mind never stopped. Every moment was filled with visions, flashes of people she never met, planets she never saw, languages she never learned. They came without warning, like memories that didn't belong to her. And yet, she knew they were real. She sat alone, knees pulled to her chest, whispering names that Rian didn't recognize. Each name made her flinch like a ghost was passing through her. She remembered faces that cried, screamed, begged for help. Some were human, some were not. All were trapped, just like she had been. And one by one, they vanished in her dreams, burned, dismantled, replaced. Rian tried to comfort her, but he couldn't lie. She was changing, and faster than before. Readings on her body showed energy levels rising beyond safe limits. Her nervous system pulsed with strange waves that echoed through the ship's walls. Sometimes, the lights would flicker just by her walking through a corridor. The ship's eye refused to scan her anymore. It simply shut down every time. It tried. But the worst part wasn't the power dot, it was the memories. "I can't tell which thoughts are mine anymore," Liara told him. "I remember your voice. I remember our missions. But I also remember standing in front of stars that don't exist anymore. I remember watching entire cities fall, and I remember liking it." Rian felt his heart drop. "That's not you. That's something else inside you." She shook her head. "What if it's always been me? What if I was chosen because deep down, I wanted to come back different?" He didn't know how to answer. That night, she screamed in her sleep. Rian ran to her room and found the walls covered in symbols again, burned into the metal like claws had etched them. She stood in the center, eyes glowing, voice repeating the same word: return. He tried to hold her, but she pushed him back with a force that wasn't human. He hit the wall hard, and for a second, he thought she was going to kill him. Then she collapsed. Cold, silent, Rian scanned her again. Her heart was still beating, but her brain activity was split. 2 patterns, 2 minds, 1 human. The other unknown. He searched the Union database again, and what he found made his blood run cold. The Taras weren't just an extinct race. They had once tried to merge with other species. They believed in one universal consciousness. They didn't just share knowledge. They implanted it, passed it forward like a virus. Not to destroy, but to survive. They didn't die, they moved on. And now they were inside Liara. She wasn't just remembering her past. She was remembering theirs. Every death, every war, every choice. Her body became a living archive of the Terras. Rian stared at her sleeping form and realized the truth. This wasn't a rescue. This wasn't even about survival. This was a second chance for a long-dead empire, and they had chosen Liara as the door. Asterisk the thing inside her. Liara no longer needed sleep, food, or rest. Her body still looked like hers, but the way she moved, the way she spoke, it was changing. Sometimes she used words Rian didn't understand, languages that hadn't been spoken in thousands of years. And sometimes she didn't speak at all, only stared, as if she was listening to a voice only she could hear. The ship's systems were reacting to her presence. Doors opened before she touched them. Lights dimmed when she walked by. The engines hummed with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. The ship wasn't malfunctioning, it was adapting. It was becoming something new, just like her. Rian couldn't deny it anymore. She wasn't just carrying memories. She wasn't just changed. Something was alive inside her. A code. A mind, a will, and it wanted more than just survival. Liara sat in the command room, eyes closed, hands resting on her knees. Around her, the consoles lit up, displaying star maps Rian had never seen. They weren't from the Union archives. They were ancient, showing systems that didn't exist. On modern charts, lost systems, buried secrets. "They're looking for me," she said softly. "Who?" Rian asked. "The rest," she replied. "The others like me. There are more." Rian's stomach turned. "What do you mean more? Others with this thing inside them?" "They were made, like me, long ago, planted across galaxies, sleeping, waiting." "Waiting for what?" he asked. She turned her head slowly, and for a moment her eyes flickered with light. 4. The signal, the same one that brought us here, it woke me up. It's waking them too. Rian stepped back, cold fear climbing his spine. "This isn't about one station," she continued, "or one experiment. This was a plan. A seed planted through time. The Terras didn't die. They hid pieces of themselves in us. In many, Now they want to come back. He felt the weight of the truth crashing down. This was a galactic infection, and she was the carrier. Can you stop it? He asked. Can you fight it? Liara looked away. I don't know. Some days I feel stronger than it. Other days, I feel like I'm disappearing. Rian clenched his fists. He had always been a soldier, trained to face enemies with weapons and orders. But how do you fight something that speaks through the person you love? The Union arrived an hour later, 3 warships. They had picked up the strange signal, followed it, and now they surrounded his ship like predators circling prey. They sent a message. Commander Rian, you are ordered to surrender the subject. This is not a rescue. It is a containment. Rian looked at Liara. She didn't flinch. They're going to destroy me. They won't touch you, he said. If they try, she whispered, I won't be able to hold it back if they attack. I will become something else. He stood beside her and loaded his weapon. Not because he wanted to fight them, but because he needed them to see he wasn't giving her up. Not without a choice. Not without a reason. As the Union ships charged their weapons, Rian held his breath. His ship was small, outnumbered, outgunned, but still, he stood his ground. Because in this moment, Liara wasn't a threat. She was a warning, and what lived inside her was only the beginning. The last line between life and death. The Union fleet locked weapons. Lights flashed across the sky. Rian's ship was still, floating like a lone feather between 3 giants. Alarms echoed through the control room, and countdowns began on all systems. The warships gave one final command: release the subject or prepare for destruction. Liara stood quietly behind Rian. Her face was calm. Too calm. Her body glowed faintly now, not with fire, but with something deeper. A quiet storm beneath her skin. Her voice was soft when she spoke. They're afraid, not of me, but of what I might become. Rian didn't move. I won't let them take you. She looked at him with sadness in her eyes. If you don't, this thing inside me will fight back. And if it wins, no one out there will survive. Not them, not you, not anyone. Then, for the first time, Rian saw it. Her struggle wasn't just against the Union or even the ancient code. She was battling herself, every second, every breath. And she was losing. Liara stepped forward, placing her hand on the ship's core. The symbols on the walls began to shine. The temperature dropped. The ship's systems paused in silence. Even the Union warships suddenly stopped their countdowns, as if sensing something change. I found a way, she whispered. I can trap it again, lock it deep inside. But I won't survive it. No, Rian said quickly, stepping forward. There has to be another way, she smiled gently. There isn't. You gave me back my mind, my choice, and I'm using it now. Before he could stop her, she began the sequence. The room filled with light, pure and endless. Rian shielded his eyes as the energy surged through the ship. He heard her voice echo through the core, repeating words he didn't understand, old and powerful. Outside, the Union ships watched as a beam of light exploded from the small vessel. It reached out into space, fast, silent, and beautiful. Then, all at once, it vanished. When Rian opened his eyes, she was gone. Where she had stood, there was only crystal clear and glowing, pulsing like a heart still beating. Inside it, a shadow floated, locked away in silence. She had done it. She had saved them all. The Union didn't fire. They scanned the ship, confirmed containment, and left without a word. No medals, no thanks, just silence. They feared what had happened and what it meant. Rian kept the crystal in the ship's vault, hidden and guarded. He visited it every day. Sometimes he spoke to it. Sometimes he just listened. And sometimes he swore he felt warmth through the glass. People called him a traitor, a fool, a hero, but he didn't care. He knew the truth. Lyra had died once. Then she came back, and this time she saved the galaxy by choosing to die again, not as a weapon, not as a host, but as herself.